Why her? Why would it be somebody who's trying to make it, who's trying to better herself, who's trying to do right by people, who's trying to help? Why? She don't put herself in them type of environments. That's why it's like I'm clueless to.
Developments after a woman is found shot to death just feet away from her front door. We're hearing now from the family of Ashley Burton, whose body was found in a breezeway at the City Park Apartments off of Fairburn Road in Atlanta. Our Cody Alcorn has this story.
Desperate knocks echo through the apartment complex. A woman, bleeding from her face, pounds on door after door. "Help me, please!" But by 4:30 a.m. on April 11, 2023, Ashley Burton would collapse in the breezeway of her Atlanta apartment building, her life slipping away as neighbors slept behind locked doors. This wasn't random violence. The killer was someone she knew, someone who shot her in the face, then followed her as she fled her own home, seeking help that never came. In America, Black transgender women face a devastating reality. They're murdered at rates far exceeding the general population. Ashley became the 9th trans person killed in 2023 alone. Welcome to True Crime Malice, where we uncover the truth behind these heartbreaking cases. Drop your city in the comments. Could something like this happen in your neighborhood? And would anyone answer if someone knocked? Ashley Burton's story began in Augusta, South Carolina, where she grew up alongside her family, including her brother Patrick and cousin Ivory Carter. Both Ashley and Ivory shared a unique bond. They were transgender women navigating life in the South, supporting each other through challenges and celebrations alike. From her earliest days, Ashley stood out for her creative spirit and unwavering authenticity. She wasn't someone who hid who she was or apologized for her identity. Her brother Patrick would later tell Fox 5 Atlanta that Ashley's approach to life was straightforward. "Take it or leave it. This is how I am. You can respect it or neglect it, but Ashley put it out there and let that person know it's not going to be a secret."
In life, it's like take it or leave it. And what I mean by that, it's like, okay, this is how I am. Either you can respect it or neglect it, but Ashley's going to put it out there, and let that person know. It was not going to be a secret.
This boldness wasn't just attitude, it was survival. For a Black transgender woman in South Carolina, being anything less than completely certain of yourself could be dangerous. Ashley developed this confidence early, along with her passion for beauty and styling. While many struggled to accept themselves, Ashley embraced her identity fully, becoming known for her warm personality and the positive energy she brought to every room. As her skills in hairstyling and makeup artistry developed, Ashley made a pivotal decision. Like many with big dreams, she knew she needed a bigger stage. Atlanta, with its vibrant beauty industry and more progressive atmosphere, called to her. According to Ivory, this move wasn't just about geography. It represented Ashley's determination to better herself professionally, as she later told Them magazine. Atlanta welcomed Ashley's talent. In the competitive beauty industry, she quickly began building a reputation. Her hands could transform clients, but it was her personality that kept them coming back. A best friend who worked alongside her described Ashley to Fox 5 as a very sweet young lady who was very full of life, really. It was always smiles and laughs with us whenever we worked together. Clients didn't just book appointments with Ashley, they entered her world, one filled with creativity, acceptance, and joy. She approached each client with the same authenticity that defined her personal life, creating connections through her talent and warm demeanor. In an industry often marked by superficiality, Ashley offered something genuine. Despite moving to Atlanta, Ashley maintained close ties with her family back in South Carolina. Her brother Patrick noted she was deeply loved by family and friends. From South Carolina to Atlanta, these connections grounded her as she built her new life. Ivory, who knew Ashley better than most, described her cousin simply as a sweetheart who wasn't nasty, wasn't disrespectful, she just wanted to live her life. This desire to simply live authentically and pursue her passion defined Ashley's journey from Augusta to Atlanta. By early 2023, at 37 years old, Ashley had established herself as a rising talent in Atlanta's beauty scene. Her future seemed bright, filled with potential clients, creative opportunities, and the chance to fully become the person she'd always known herself to be. April 11th, 2023 began like any other night at the elite at City Park Apartments on Fairburn Road in Atlanta. The complex, with its modern amenities and promise of comfortable living, had attracted residents like Ashley Burton, who were building their lives in the city. As midnight passed and most residents settled into sleep, few could have imagined the horror that would unfold in the early morning hours. Ashley was at home in her apartment. The space reflected her personality, stylish and welcoming. Photos of family and friends likely adorned the walls, alongside the tools of her trade as a hairstylist and makeup artist. It was her sanctuary, a place where she could relax after long days of building her beauty career. What we know from police reports is that sometime before 4:30 a.m., Ashley had company. Darius Mills, a 31-year-old man, was inside her apartment. While the exact nature of their relationship remains unclear, investigators would later determine they knew each other. Ashley wasn't the type to welcome strangers into her home, especially at such an hour. The conversation between them took a dark turn, according to arrest warrants later obtained by local media. What might have begun as a normal interaction escalated when Mills allegedly attempted to steal Ashley's phone. This wasn't a random home invasion, it was a betrayal by someone she knew well enough to allow into her private space. The argument intensified, voices raised, tensions mounted. Then came the moment that would end Ashley's life. Mills allegedly pulled out a 9mm handgun and fired directly at Ashley's face. The bullet struck her but didn't immediately kill her. In that moment of shock and pain, Ashley's survival instincts kicked in. Bleeding from her face, she fled her own apartment. The place that should have been her haven now became the site of her attempted murder. But Mills wasn't finished. According to Ashley's cousin Ivory Carter, who later pieced together the events from police reports and witness statements, she ran out of the house, hollering and screaming, beating on doors. The image is haunting. Ashley, wounded and desperate, moving through the second-floor hallway of her apartment building, pounding on neighbors' doors, pleading for someone, anyone, to help her. Door after door, knock after knock, each unanswered call for help must have increased her terror. Behind those doors, residents either slept through her cries or were too afraid to answer a commotion in the middle of the night. The cruel irony wasn't lost on Ivory, who later told The Advocate, "This got to be personal. You shot her in her house, then you followed her outside and shot her." As Ashley moved through the complex, Mills allegedly pursued her, the hunter following his wounded prey. Whether he fired additional shots as she fled remains unclear from public reports, but the intent seems obvious. He wasn't going to let her escape alive. Ashley's strength was fading. The blood loss from her facial wound was substantial. Her desperate journey ended in the second-floor breezeway of her building. There, her legs finally gave out, and she collapsed. Alone, with no one to comfort her in her final moments, Ashley Burton's life ended in the early morning darkness. It wasn't until shortly before 4:30 a.m. that someone finally noticed something wrong. A resident, perhaps heading to an early shift or returning from a late night, spotted Ashley's body in the breezeway and called 911. Police arrived quickly, but it was far too late. Officers found Ashley's body where she had fallen. The scene told a partial story. A woman, clearly the victim of violence, who had died trying to save herself. What they couldn't immediately know was who had done this or why. As dawn broke over Atlanta that April morning, residents of the elite at City Park Apartments emerged to find police tape and investigators. Many had slept through the entire incident, unaware that while they dreamed, a woman had been fighting for her life just outside their doors. For Ashley's family, the nightmare was just beginning. The phone calls no one ever wants to receive were made. Patrick Burton and Ivory Carter would soon learn that their beloved Ashley, the authentic, vibrant soul who had moved to Atlanta to build a better life, was gone. Her potential extinguished in a breezeway just steps from where she should have been safest. Atlanta Police Department officers arrived at the Elite at City Park Apartments before dawn on April 11th, securing the scene where Ashley Burton's body lay in the second-floor breezeway. The initial response focused on preserving evidence and canvassing for witnesses. Detectives faced an immediate challenge. Despite Ashley's desperate attempts to alert neighbors, few had seen or heard anything useful. The early morning timing meant most residents were asleep when the shooting occurred. The crime scene told part of the story. Blood evidence indicated Ashley had been shot inside her apartment before fleeing outside. Investigators noted signs of a struggle and possible theft. Her apartment door stood open, suggesting she'd fled in panic, and her attacker may have returned inside afterward. Detectives began the painstaking process of reconstructing Ashley's final hours. Who had she been with? Who knew she would be home alone? Phone records became crucial, but investigators quickly discovered something odd. Ashley's phone was missing. This wasn't just incidental. It appeared to be deliberately taken. Family members provided valuable context. When interviewed, Ashley's brother Patrick and cousin Ivory explained that Ashley was cautious about who she allowed into her home. This suggested she likely knew her killer. A critical lead that narrowed the investigation's focus to her personal connections, rather than a random attack. For weeks, the case progressed slowly. Detectives interviewed Ashley's friends, clients, and acquaintances. They reviewed security footage from the apartment complex and surrounding businesses. They tracked electronic records and financial transactions, but the killer's identity remained elusive. Then came the breakthrough. Nearly 2 months after Ashley's murder, investigators connected the dots to 31-year-old Darius Mills. The connection wasn't made through dramatic confession or anonymous tip, but through methodical police work. Mills was already in custody at the Fulton County Jail on unrelated charges when detectives linked him to Ashley's case. The evidence against Mills proved compelling. According to arrest warrants later obtained by local media, Mills had allegedly attempted to steal Ashley's phone, which led to the confrontation that ended with him shooting her in the face with a 9mm handgun. But the theft didn't end there. After shooting Ashley, Mills allegedly broke back into her apartment and stole a second phone. This wasn't just a crime of passion or a momentary loss of control. The deliberate return to steal additional property showed calculation that chilled even veteran investigators. The theft of both phones also explained why Ashley couldn't call for help, and why tracking her devices initially proved difficult. On June 6, 2023, Atlanta police announced they had secured arrest warrants for Mills in connection with Ashley's murder. The charges were substantial: murder, armed robbery, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. While the arrest brought some closure, it raised disturbing questions about the relationship between Ashley and Mills. Police statements indicated they believed the two knew each other, though the exact nature of their connection wasn't publicly specified. What warning signs might have preceded this violence? Could Ashley have recognized the danger? These questions haunt not just this case, but countless others. Have you ever noticed concerning behavior in someone you know that made you uncomfortable? What did you do? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your insight might help someone recognize danger before it's too late. As the case against Mills moved toward prosecution, Ashley's family found small comfort in knowing her killer would face justice. But for Ivory and Patrick, no arrest could bring back the vibrant woman who had moved to Atlanta with dreams of building a better life. When Atlanta police announced on June 6, 2023, that they had secured arrest warrants for Darius Mills in connection with Ashley Burton's murder, the news came with an unexpected detail. Mills was already behind bars. The 31-year-old suspect had been sitting in Fulton County Jail on unrelated charges while detectives built their case against him for Ashley's killing. This twist in the investigation highlighted how justice sometimes works. Mills hadn't been captured in a dramatic standoff or after a high-speed chase. Instead, he'd been quietly incarcerated while the evidence against him accumulated. Peace The charges filed against Mills painted a picture of both violence and calculation. He faced counts of murder, the most serious charge possible under Georgia law. But the additional charges told a more complex story. Armed robbery, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Each charge added layers to the prosecution's case and years to any potential sentence. The armed robbery charge stemmed from the theft of Ashley's phones. First the one he allegedly attempted to take before shooting her, then the second phone he reportedly returned to steal after she fled. This wasn't just a killing. It was a calculated crime with multiple components. The firearm charges carried special weight. As a convicted felon, Mills was legally prohibited from possessing any gun. The fact that he not only had a 9mm handgun but used it to shoot Ashley in the face showed a flagrant disregard for both the law and human life. What remained murky was the exact relationship between Ashley and Mills. Police statements indicated they believed the two knew each other, noting that Ashley likely wouldn't have allowed a stranger into her apartment at that hour. Were they friends? Acquaintances? Had they just met? The public details remained vague, though investigators clearly had enough information to connect Mills to the crime scene. The question of motive became central to understanding the case. On the surface, robbery appeared to be the primary driver. Mills allegedly attempted to steal Ashley's phone, which triggered the confrontation that led to her death. But was theft truly the only motivation? Authorities did not publicly state whether they believed Ashley's identity as a transgender woman played a role in her murder. This silence left open questions about whether bias or hate might have factored into the crime. For many in the LGBTQ+ community, particularly transgender women of color, the distinction mattered deeply. What made the case particularly disturbing was the apparent shift from robbery to execution. If Mills had simply wanted Ashley's phone, why follow her out of the apartment after shooting her? Why ensure she couldn't reach help? The progression suggested something beyond simple theft, a determination to silence her permanently. As Mills awaited trial, the legal process moved forward with the methodical pace typical of murder cases. For Ashley's family, the arrest brought a measure of relief, but opened new wounds as details of her final moments became clearer through court documents and police reports. For investigators, the case file could be marked solved, but for those who loved Ashley, the question of why remained painfully unanswered. In the wake of Ashley Burton's murder, her story becomes part of a devastating pattern of violence against transgender individuals in America. According to the Human Rights Campaign, HRC, Ashley's death marked at least the 9th violent killing of a transgender or gender non-conforming person in 2023, and the second such death in Georgia that year alone. The statistics paint a grim picture. By the end of 2023, at least 32 transgender and gender-expansive people would lose their lives to violence in the United States. Of these victims, 84% were people of color, and 50% were Black transgender women specifically, highlighting the disproportionate impact on this community. Even more alarming, 78% of these victims were killed with a gun, underscoring the deadly intersection of firearm access and anti-transgender violence. Black transgender women face a uniquely dangerous reality. From 2017 to 2023, more than 6 in 10 gun homicides of transgender and gender-expansive people, 63%, were of Black trans women, according to Everytown for Gun Safety. This isn't random. It reflects the compounding effects of racism, sexism, and transphobia that create heightened vulnerability. The pattern of interpersonal violence is particularly troubling. HRC's report, An Epidemic of Violence, found that between 2013 and 2022, approximately 1/3 of transgender and gender non-conforming people with known killers had their lives taken by an acquaintance, friend, family member, or intimate partner. In 2023 specifically, 36% of victims with a known killer were killed by a romantic or sexual partner, friend, or family member. The 2015 United States Transgender Survey revealed that 54% of transgender and non-binary people have experienced some form of intimate partner violence in their lifetime. Ashley's case follows this pattern. Killed in what appears to have been a domestic dispute that escalated to deadly violence. Firearms play a central role in this epidemic. According to a 2022 report from Everytown for Gun Safety in partnership with HRC, more than 25,000 hate crimes in the U.S. involve a firearm each year, almost 70 cases daily. Between 2013 and 2022, more than two-thirds of all recorded fatalities against transgender and gender nonconforming people involved a firearm, including over three-quarters of all reported fatalities in 2022. The geographic distribution of this violence isn't random either. 45% of gun homicides of transgender and gender-expansive people since 2017 took place in the South, a region that makes up only 38% of the U.S. population. This concentration correlates with states that have both weaker gun safety laws and more anti-LGBTQ+ legislation. In response to Ashley's murder, the Georgia chapters of Moms Demand Action and Students Demand Action released a statement saying, "Black transgender women are on the front lines of our country's epidemic of hate-fueled gun violence, and we demand our lawmakers across all levels pass legislation that will protect them." The community response to Ashley's death extended beyond advocacy groups. Her family spoke out about her authenticity and courage. Her brother Patrick told Fox 5 Atlanta, "The way my sibling moved in life, it was take it or leave it. This is how I am. You can respect it or neglect it, but Ashley put it out there and let that person know. It's not going to be a secret." Tori Cooper, HRC's Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative, said, "Ashley's family knew her as a confident woman who was comfortable in her own skin and a proud member of the trans community. As a talented hairstylist and makeup artist, it's disheartening to see someone with so much potential have their life cut short. The violence against transgender individuals doesn't happen in isolation. It occurs against a backdrop of increasing anti-transgender legislation and rhetoric. In Georgia, where Ashley lived and died, transgender people are not explicitly protected from discrimination in employment, housing, education, and public spaces. What warning signs might indicate someone is at risk of violence from a partner or acquaintance? Have you ever noticed concerning behaviors in relationships around you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your awareness could help protect someone in your community. As we examine the broader context of Ashley's death, we're confronted with the reality that ending this violence requires addressing multiple intersecting issues: gun safety legislation, anti-discrimination protections, intimate partner violence prevention, and the dismantling of systemic racism and transphobia that create the conditions where such violence thrives. In the wake of Ashley Burton's tragic death, those who knew and loved her refused to let her memory fade into just another statistic. Her cousin Ivory, who shared a special bond with Ashley throughout their lives, emerged as a powerful voice in honoring her legacy. "Ashley was more than just my cousin, she was my sister. My confidant," Ivory shared during memorial gatherings. "She lived her truth unapologetically, and that courage inspired everyone around her." The beauty community in Atlanta, where Ashley had built her reputation as a skilled hairstylist and makeup artist, felt her absence profoundly. Former clients spoke of not just losing a talented professional, but someone who made them feel beautiful inside and out. "When you sat in Ashley's chair, you weren't just getting your hair done," remembered one longtime client. "You were getting friendship and a boost of confidence that lasted long after your appointment." At her workplace, colleagues recalled Ashley's dedication to her craft and her clients. They described how she would often go above and beyond to accommodate clients, and how her warm personality made everyone feel welcome and valued. In the months following Ashley's murder, Ivory channeled her grief into advocacy, speaking out about violence against transgender women, particularly Black trans women who face disproportionate rates of violence. "Ashley always believed in standing up for others," Ivory explained at community gatherings. "We're continuing that work in her name." Community organizations in Atlanta held vigils where both those who knew Ashley personally and those moved by her story came together in solidarity, holding candles and sharing in collective grief. These gatherings transformed from moments of mourning into spaces for connection and commitment to change. Ashley's family keeps her memory alive through personal remembrances, celebrating her birthday, maintaining her social media accounts as digital memorials, and speaking openly about their daughter and cousin to ensure her story continues to touch lives. In remembering Ashley Burton, we're reminded that behind every headline is a full, complex human life, one filled with dreams, relationships, talents, and love that continues to ripple outward long after they're gone. Her story is not just about how she died, but about how she lived and the legacy she left behind for her family, friends, and community to carry forward. As we reflect on Ashley Burton's life and tragic death, we must ask ourselves, how many more lives will be lost before we address the epidemic of violence against transgender individuals? Prevention starts with recognition, seeing victims not as statistics, but as complete human beings with dreams, talents, and loved ones. What solutions do you think could make a difference in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story moved you, please like and subscribe to support more coverage of these important issues.